show.
The Russian Tsar who was poisoned, shot, stabbed, and drowned, and refused to die. On a freezing December night in 1916, a man ate enough cyanide to kill 5 people. Then he was shot in the chest at point-blank range. Then he was shot again. Then he was beaten with a rubber club until his attacker's arms gave out. Then he was wrapped in a carpet, driven to a frozen river, and thrown through a hole in the ice. And when they pulled his body from the water days later, the autopsy revealed something that made the doctors step back from the table in disbelief. His lungs were full of water. That means only one thing. After the poison, after the bullets, after the beating, after being thrown into a frozen river in the dead of a Russian winter, Grigori Rasputin was still alive. He died by drowning. And for over a century, the world has been asking one simple question: how? Welcome back to Historical Secrets. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on one of the most terrifying and inexplicable deaths in all of recorded history: the murder of the man they called the Mad Monk, the man who held the Russian Empire in the palm of his hand, the man whose death was supposed to save a dynasty, but instead sealed its doom. To understand how Rasputin died, you first have to understand how he lived. Born around 1869 in the remote Siberian village of Pokrovskoye, Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin was the son of a peasant farmer. He had no formal education, no military rank, no noble blood. By every measure of imperial Russian society, he was nobody. But Rasputin possessed something that no amount of wealth or title could buy. He had a presence, an energy, a pair of pale blue eyes that witnesses described as hypnotic, almost impossible to look away from. He wandered Russia as a self-proclaimed holy man, a Stranik, gathering followers who believed he had the power to heal the sick through prayer and touch. And then, in 1905, he received an invitation that would change the course of history. The imperial family, Tsar Nicholas II, and his wife Tsarina Alexandra, had a secret they were desperate to keep hidden from the world. Their only son, Alexei, the heir to the Russian throne, suffered from hemophilia, a genetic blood disorder that meant even a small bruise could cause uncontrollable internal bleeding. The boy lived in constant agony. The finest doctors in Europe could do nothing. And then Rasputin walked into the palace. What historians don't tell you is what happened next defied every medical explanation available then and now. Rasputin sat beside the boy, prayed, spoke softly, and the bleeding stopped. Not once, not twice. Repeatedly, over years, whenever Alexei was at death's door, Rasputin was summoned, and the boy recovered. Modern theories suggest he may have simply told Alexandra to stop giving Alexei aspirin, a common treatment at the time that actually thins the blood and worsens hemophilia. Others believe it was hypnosis, or sheer coincidence, or something else entirely that we still cannot name. Whatever it was, the Tsarina became utterly convinced that Rasputin was a man of God, and that her son's life depended on him. This gave Rasputin power, unimaginable, unprecedented power. A Siberian peasant was suddenly whispering in the ear of the empress, influencing government appointments, military decisions, church affairs. For centuries, this was hidden from the world, but private letters between Alexandra and Nicholas revealed just how deep Rasputin's influence ran. Alexandra would write to her husband at the war front, relaying Rasputin's advice on troop movements and political strategy. The Tsar of all Russia was governing based on the visions of a mystic. The Russian aristocracy watched in horror. They saw their empire crumbling, their Tsar weakened, their nation losing a world war, and at the center of it all, this unwashed, wild-eyed peasant who drank heavily, who was rumored to seduce the wives of noblemen, and who seemed answerable to no one. Something had to be done. The truth was buried for a reason, but the details of what happened on the night of December 30th, 1916, have slowly emerged over the decades, pieced together from confessions, memoirs, forensic analysis, and recently declassified documents. The conspiracy was led by Prince Felix Yusupov, one of the wealthiest men in Russia, along with Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, a cousin of the Tsar, and Vladimir Purishkevich, a member of the Russian parliament. These were not radicals. These were the pillars of the establishment, and they decided that Rasputin had to die. Yusupov lured Rasputin to his palace, the magnificent Moika Palace in Saint Petersburg, under the pretense of a late-night social visit. In the basement, a room had been prepared with wine, tea cakes, and enough potassium cyanide to kill a small army. Rasputin ate the poisoned cakes. He drank the poisoned wine. And nothing happened. He complained of a mild burning in his throat and asked for more wine. Yusupov, barely containing his panic, excused himself, went upstairs to his co-conspirators, took a revolver, came back down, and shot Rasputin in the chest. The mystic collapsed on the floor. A doctor among the group checked and confirmed there was no pulse. They left the body and went upstairs to celebrate. And then, according to Yusupov's own account, he returned to the basement to check on the corpse, and Rasputin's eyes snapped open. The dead man lunged at him, grabbed him by the throat, and whispered his name. Yusupov tore free and ran screaming up the stairs. Rasputin followed. He crawled up from that basement, burst through a door into the courtyard, and began staggering through the snow toward the gate, shouting that he would tell the Tsarina everything. Purishkevich chased him into the courtyard and fired 4 shots, hitting him twice more. Rasputin finally fell. They stood over him, and then, just to be certain, they beat him savagely, bound his arms and legs, wrapped him in cloth, drove to the Petrovsky Bridge, and pushed him through the ice into the frozen Neva River. This changes everything we thought we knew about the limits of the human body and the nature of the man himself. When the body was recovered 2 days later, his arms had partially freed themselves from the bindings. The official cause of death was hypothermia and drowning. Not poison, not bullets, drowning. Now, modern historians have raised questions about some details. Some believe Yusupov exaggerated parts of the story to make himself seem more heroic. Recent forensic analysis suggests the cyanide may have been degraded by the heat of baking, reducing its potency. A controversial theory supported by some British intelligence documents suggests that the final kill shot, a bullet to the forehead, was actually fired by a British agent named Oswald Rayner, sent to ensure Rasputin could never negotiate a separate peace between Russia and Germany. If true, this means Rasputin's murder was not merely a Russian affair, but an act of international espionage. What we know for certain is this: Rasputin's death did not save the dynasty. It accelerated its destruction. Within 3 months of his murder, revolution erupted. Within 16 months, Tsar Nicholas, Tsarina Alexandra, and all 5 of their children, including the hemophiliac boy Rasputin had fought so hard to keep alive, were executed in a basement in Yekaterinburg. The Romanov dynasty, which had ruled Russia for over 300 years, was finished. Rasputin himself had reportedly made a prophecy before his death. He warned the imperial family that if he were killed by Russian nobles, the entire family would be dead within 2 years, and Russia would be drowned in blood. The Russian Civil War that followed claimed millions of lives. Was it prophecy? Was it coincidence? Was Rasputin a genuine mystic, a cunning manipulator, or something else entirely that history has never been able to properly classify? Some questions, it seems, refuse to die, much like the man himself. Next time on Historical Secrets, we investigate the lost tomb of a conqueror who killed 4% of the world's population, a grave so well hidden that anyone who stumbled upon it was executed on the spot. The burial site of Genghis Khan. You do not want to miss it. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and we will see you in the shadows of history.